We have two blacks that we use regularly in our theater. This is our flat black paint. We use this to paint any scenic black that we want. If we need black with our white or with our other colors to mix a special color, we use this lamp black from the Spectrum brand. There are several others from Roscoe and other brands and Mann Brothers as well, but this is the one that's local and fairly inexpensive and does a great job. I'm also going to use this as a primer on the Masonite, and that way the Masonite gets set with the flat black and gets sealed in with the flat black before I paint the stage floor black. The stage floor black uses the Mann Brothers Verifloor black paint. This is a semi-gloss paint, and 2 coats of this on a brand new piece of Masonite will last multiple years. It's a good, durable, long-term care. It mops real easily. It cleans up easily. You don't want to use the flat black on your stage floor. It does not clean easy. It picks up dirt. You see the dirt all over the place. You can mop it, but then you walk on it and you see footprints. The Verifloor black is a really good, durable stage floor paint and will last many years if treated well. So 1 coat of flat black and 2 coats of Verifloor scenic stage floor black paint. We don't water down our primers ever. You don't want to water down your primer. If you water down your primer, you are going to basically disable some of the adhesive and cover up functions of it, and it may not do a proper priming job. This has been sitting here for a long time, months, several months, so it has not been shaken in a long time. Got to dig into all those corners and get all that paint mixed up. Don't let that paint sit in the cracks of the paint can. Also try not to leave your paint can open. This isn't going to take very long, but that's good standard practice. The first time you are loading up your roller, it's going to soak up a lot of paint into the roller, and it's not going to go on as much. So the first one, we're not going to get a lot of coverage. But just roll it on, nice even coat. This goes on pretty quickly with the roller. And your standard roller technique is when it is all out of the roller, don't work real hard at squeezing more paint out. That's just overworking the roller, and it's not getting a good coverage on there. It looks like it might be covering, but it's not covering very well, and it's going to spatter paint at me and on my feet and on my face if I'm painting a wall or a ceiling. So when it starts to get a little bit thin, just go back and reload up the roller. If you're painting something like a stage floor, you might want to be conscious of your linear strokes and not leaving little ridges. This looks rather glossy because it's still wet, but when it dries, it will be flat black, and it will act as a fabulous primer. I've had more success with flat black as a primer on my stage floor than I have with white. Even though this is not necessarily a primer paint, it takes those slick Masonite layers and saturates them with paint and water. If you need to have some extra insurance with your fresh Masonite, you can take a wet mop and mop it first, and that will start to raise the grain on the Masonite and allow your paint to penetrate the glossy surface more effectively. I did not do that here, but that is an alternative as well. Imperfections like this strand of fabric, get it out of there. We want to have a nice, clean, smooth stage floor. And that's basically it. Smooth off any ridges that might need it. You might ask, what nap roller did I use? And I used a medium nap roller. This is a smooth surface, and with smooth surfaces, the rollers often say that you want a very short nap roller for smooth surfaces, and then the more rough the surfaces go, the thicker the nap you need to get into all the cracks and crevices. That's the theory behind that. But I find a really, really thin nap roller, the thinnest 1/4 inch or shortest nap available, I don't find it's very successful. They don't hold a lot of paint. I'd rather have a medium nap roller and have it hold more paint, and I feel like I get better coverage and I get more successful coverage. So we let that dry, and in a couple hours we could paint our first coat of stage floor black on it. Our piece of stage floor Masonite is primed with the flat black. As you can see, it's not a shiny finish. So we're going to use the Mann Brothers Verifloor Black here, and we're going to put a couple coats of that on there. Of course, the paint, as you can see, is got all this white stuff on top. That means it's separated from its main components, so we need to stir it up really well. Should not be white. Now that's starting to look like black. We're going to use roller trays, and the Mann Brothers paint here is really sticks to things. And if you don't wash it off right away, or if you're doing a whole stage floor, there's chances are your paint is going to be in your bucket a long time, in your paint tray a long time, and then when you go to clean it, you're going to have a hard time cleaning it because it really adheres well. So this is the one time that I would recommend using a roller tray liner, because this stuff is really sticky, and it even is hard to clean off of your hands at the end of the workday. So if you want to wear latex gloves or nitrile gloves, you can do that. Here's one that was used, and this is all that stage floor paint. Just hard to get off. So we're going to use our roller tray with a roller tray insert. I'm not a big fan of roller tray inserts. I feel like they get in the way. They're one more thing. It's kind of loosey-goosey in there. and it wobbles around. I like to have more control over my paint, and I like the rigidity of the paint tray. I don't really like the loosey-goosey nature of these. And I'm kind of against disposable things. I'd rather clean things out and reuse them multiple times. But again, stage 4 paint, good call to use the roller tray inserts. Every time I go to pour some the paint in, go ahead and stir it up again, because it will probably start to separate again. It's been sitting for a long time. I did have it nicely mixed up, but now it's separating again immediately. Get those components mixed up. Maybe one of these days I need to invest in a paint shaking machine. Pour some paint in there. Always have a brush on hand to clean up the drips and to get those drips out of these crevices in the lid, in the rim. Try not to make a mess. All right, we're ready to go. Again, I'm using this 1/2-inch nap roller. I like the thicker nap rollers. They hold more paint and get better coverage. Although they will not do as perfectly smooth of a surface. There is a roller texture that kind of happens when you use rollers. This paint actually settles down though pretty good. So I'm just making sure I've got good coverage, making sure I'm overlapping, making sure I'm getting all the way to the edges and off the edges, and then making sure I come back and I smooth out any little peaks that might be left because of the edge of the roller or heavy paint. Pouring more paint in there, so I'm going to stir it up again. And now that I've got some paint out of the can, I can stir a little more aggressively without spilling everywhere. I'm going to hit the edges right now just to make sure I got a good coverage on the edges, but I'm going to keep all my strokes on my paint going in the same direction. That will give you a nice, smoother, cleaner finish. Come all the way to my edges. Come back one more time. Make sure I've done it as smoothly as possible. And that's it. Rolling paint goes really fast. I do have to put on a second coat, so rather than clean out my roller twice, I'm going to bag the roller in the tray so I can let it sit for the next 25 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, however long it takes to dry. Should be able to do another coat on there in under an hour. This will keep the paint from evaporating and drying up and caking up. And I'll be good for a short time. Not good for long-term storage, but good enough for a short time. I am going to clean out my stick and my brush though. Time for our second coat. We can throw our bag away. Now the roller has been sitting in the paint for the last hour or so, and it's going to be kind of heavily loaded. So we will try and squeeze some of that out. Get it to roll around, even out, but it's going to go on pretty heavy. I went this way with the last one. I'm going to maybe go the other way with, we'll go the other direction this time. Now I am noticing that as I'm doing this, I am using a 1/2-inch nap roller, and it is making it a little roller bumpy. There's a roller texture that comes out of rollers, and if I really needed a smooth surface, I would need to go down to a much more, a much smoother surface roller. Either a 3/8 or something smaller nap than that. Hit it one more time from this side. Make sure I'm not having a extra paint there in the middle where the two roller coats happen. That third coat went fast. Wow. Second coat of Verifloor semi-gloss paint finish, 1 coat of the flat black. So 3rd coat total, but only 2 coats of the Overhaul. I'm going to pour all this unused paint back in. I did not water down my paint. I did not say that at the beginning, but I do not add water to this paint. I use it at 100% strength, and that's important. We don't need to water down the Overhaul stage floor paint. We want to use it at full strength. I'm not trying to get it completely out of this roller liner because I'm going to throw the roller liner away, the tray liner, but I do want to save as much paint as possible. We'll wash this out just in case there's any wet paint on there. Do a final cleaning of the rim. Tap it gently closed. These are 4 of the most common roller nap thicknesses for your standard cloth or fabric style rollers. The first is a 1/4 inch thick nap. These are intended for your smoothest surfaces and will apply your smoothest coat of paint. They also do not hold a lot of paint, so you may make more trips to the roller tray. With new Masonite, this might be the logical choice since the surface is already smooth. The second is a 3/8 inch nap roller, the most commonly available size. If you buy in bulk packages, you will probably only find this size available. The roller pictured here has been used before and washed clean for reuse. The third size is the 1/2 inch nap roller thickness. This is my personal preference for painting stage floors. The fourth size is the 3/4 inch nap roller, which is intended to get into cracks and crevices of less smooth surfaces, such as stucco or cinder block walls. We want to avoid using this one for our stage floor Masonite since it will create more of a surface texture than we want for stage floors. For a side-by-side comparison of the finished textures, you would expect the 1/4 inch nap roller to be the smoothest. But the 3/8 inch nap roller, which was previously used and washed, almost looks smoother. Even with a 1/2 inch nap roller, I find it difficult to see a significant difference, which is why I would choose this size and its ability to hold more paint per load. We do start to see a significant surface texture when using the 3/4 inch nap roller. Avoid using them for Masonite intended for your permanent stage floor installations. Now that we've painted our Masonite and prepped it for installation in the playhouse, we need to countersink it. We can countersink it before painting. In this case, I'm going to countersink it after it's been painted. Our general countersinking guideline is 1 for each corner. And on the long boards, we put 1 in the middle, and usually 2 in between middle and the end is enough. So that's every 4 feet. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the same thing around the sides here. 1, 2, 3, 4 is enough, and all the way around. Assuming this unfinished piece is our Masonite, we're going to talk about placement of our holes. You can get them close to the edge, but you don't need to crowd the edge. You don't need to be exactly this far into the corner. You can be that close to the corner, but you can also be, you know, 3/4 of an inch in. So something like that distance from the edge is okay. Don't bother trying to crowd the corner. So again, 3/4 of an inch in, right there. That one isn't deep enough. It's not going to have the head of the screw go underneath the surface. If you can't eyeball the size of the countersink, you can always have a drywall screw here and you can just put it in there and just make sure that the head will go below the surface. Just like that. These two are good in terms of their distance from the edge. This one's a little bit too close to the edge. And we're looking at that. It's about 3/4 and this is about 1/2 inch or 3/8. And of course, something like that is too far from the edge. There's no real specific rule as where it has to be, but again, just don't crowd your edge and don't be too far on the inside. If you want precise measurements, we can do this. We can go to 4 feet. We can figure out what the 2/3 marks are going to be, because it is going to be 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. 48 divided by 3 is 18. That would be every 16 inches. I should know that because that's standard stud framing. So there you go. If you want a precise measurement, you're going to be 1 in the corner and every 16 inches. And if you haven't been paying attention to your tape measure usually has special markings at 16 inches because that's your standard stud marking. Every 16 inches is your standard stud wall for house construction, for wall construction. So 16 is red, 32 is red, 48 is red, 64 is red. All those numbers are going to be pretty consistent. So we're going to put 1 in the corner, again, not too close to the corner. So this one isn't exactly at 4 feet, but it's in the corner. 1 at 32 inches. One at 16 inches. And 1 in the corner. Going the long 8-foot distance, we'll just do the same thing, every 16 inches. And I'm just going to eyeball it now. I was thinking this morning about why some people have the ability to visually divide things into sections, into halves, into thirds, into fourths, into fifths, into sixths. And I think mostly it's because people don't practice it. And that's why you can measure this out and be precise, and if you want all of your stage floor to be really nice and clean looking, that's probably the way to go. but it's also useful to practice those skills of dividing things into thirds. Dividing things in half is easy. You've got two pieces and you cut it down the middle, and then you cut that down the middle. But if you have to divide any of those sections into thirds, that's a little bit harder. And I think if just people practiced dividing things into thirds or dividing things into fifths, it would be, it accentuates and heightens and builds your visual ability to see proportions and to assign proportions. These we measured precisely. I could go and find out how accurate my eyeballing was here. 80 inches is here, so I'm an inch and a half off. 64 is here, I'm almost 2 inches off. 4 feet, I'm an inch off. 32, I'm a half an inch off, and 16, I'm about half to 3/4 of an inch off. But again, unless this is something that's got the visual quality for looking good, this is 1.25 inches off. I overshot this one by 3 inches. I think eyeballing it like this for the stage floor is fine. We're just going to walk on it. It's going to get into several coats of paint over this lifetime. It just needs to hold down and be secure. So we just do the perimeter when we're doing Masonite for the stage floor, and we don't put any screws in the middle, and we don't do any extra than this until we put it down, and then we only add additional screw points where needed. And usually you don't need any more. If your stage floor is nice and even and level and clean, then this will hold it in place. It won't buckle up or anything. But occasionally some moisture will get under something and it'll buckle in spots, and you might have to put 1 or 2 in the middle. But we don't start with putting them in the middle, just in the perimeter. And if we need to put extras here, if I plow through here with my countersink on one spot, I just drill another hole next to it. It's fine. Or you can toss the whole piece and get a brand new piece. That works as well. I want to be careful when I set this on the ground that I don't ding up the corners. If I ding up the corners, then I don't have a nice, consistent, clean, and even floor. And that's it. These two pieces are ready to go on the stage floor. This is a fairly decent shaped piece of Masonite on the stage floor. It's a little bit worn, but it's not yet quite at the point of needing to be replaced, although there is this little crack imperfection from something underneath that would put it higher on the list. As we get further off stage, there are some pieces of Masonite that have spots where lag screws were put through the stage, anchoring down a lighting tree. That will need to be replaced soon, but generally speaking, the condition of the stage floor is pretty good. But when we get into the higher trafficked area, we start to see these bubbles of paint and extra screws and screw holes. Some of these bubbles of paint are from spatter technique that was used on a stage floor paint job, and then the floor was painted black again. I think this one is the one I'm going to be replacing, in particular because there's all these screw holes here that have been dug into and then painted over a couple of times. So that one and this piece next to it are going to get replaced. Other pieces are just as bad, but I've only prepped 2 pieces of Masonite for this video, so I'm going to only replace 2. These were replaced a couple years ago, but then we had a show that wanted to spatter paint all over the floor, and that just sort of ruined it. If we look towards the edge of the stage, this is towards the edge of the apron. These pieces have not been replaced in a long time, and you can see the edge of the stage here. This Masonite is all sort of scattered, and these have been high on the list to replace for a couple of years, but it takes someone to cut this curve accurately, and I just haven't had the time to supervise that. So we limp along. You can see a big section of paint peeled up, and then it was painted over again. These really should have gotten replaced years ago. You can see old spike tape marks that were painted over. The proper apron orchestra pit was replaced several years ago, and these are also in pretty good shape. Fresh mopping and fresh paint job will do this wonders. I've chosen the 2 pieces of Masonite that I'm going to replace with the 2 new pieces of Masonite that I've painted and prepped, and I'm standing on one of them, and the other one is here to my left. This is a job that if you want to wear knee pads to protect your knees. You don't want to jam your knees onto a screw that's lying on the floor. That hurts. This one's interesting. It had extra screws on the end. It was underscrewed on this side. One, two, three, four, 5 screws on the side, and if we were going 16 inches on center, that's at least 2 screws too short. This piece of Masonite has been put down in here a long time, so it may be difficult to get up. I just need to find somewhere where I can pry in here without damaging next to it. This corner. It's got a lot of paint in the cracks, so it's resistant. Once we get underneath there, we'll come up without much struggle. Now, as it's coming up, I may have missed some screws, so I'm going to be aware of that. And if so, I'll stop and I'll pull them out. If I can't see them, I'll try to remove them afterwards. This piece has the right amount of screws on the side. This Masonite was put down with 1 5/8 inch screws. It's a little overkill. You really only need 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch screws. The problem with the bigger screws as you get bigger is that there are not screw threads towards the head, especially with the 2-inch screw and the 2.5 and the 3-inch screw. There's a section of no threads. So if that part is part of your lumber that's supposed to bite, that's going to be less effective, and the 1 5/8 just start to do that. But you've got basically 1/4 inch of Masonite. You're sinking down a little bit below that because you're below surface, so it's a little overkill. You do want to check all the way around, make sure there's no broken screw heads or screws that have broken heads, and any imperfections it's going to cause, like these chunks of Masonite, they're going to cause little indentations, and when you step on it, when you drive over it with a lift, it's going to cause the Masonite to buckle and get damaged. You can see some spots here. There's a spot here, spot here, spot here. That's where there were some holes drilled into the stage, and they've been filled right here too with dowel, another one here. And that's common in a lot of theaters. Some theaters do not allow any screwing into your stage floor whatsoever, and some do not allow any drilling of holes in your stage floor. So if you're going into someone else's theater, know their rules and regulations and guidelines. Oh, see, here's a broken leg screw, and that's going to be real bad for a piece of Masonite. And there's actually a couple of these. Ugh. Wow. That's what was going on. Oh, I know what was going on. So all those holes were someone trying to screw something into the stage floor, but they didn't realize that this piece right here is sitting on top of a beam. This is a stage trap, and this is a stage trap, and this is a beam that supports the boards between the stage traps. And they were trying to use too long of a screw, and it was going through this piece of 2x4 tongue and groove and hitting that metal beam and breaking off. Wow, I picked a good one, huh? I think we're probably just going to get a grinder and grind those off. I might be able to pry that one out with the vice grips. I might be able to pry that one out with the vice grips, but not the others. Okay, I almost missed that. We're looking good here. Good here. Okay. I could try pounding these in, but again, I know that they are below here, and this could actually be what's causing this piece of wood to buckle up and pull up. I know that below this is a piece of metal, and if I just pound them down, that is just going to pound them back up. So we're going to look at the vice grips on the big one. really helps to know what is underneath your stage so that you don't have this problem. I think I can grab this one. So it's going to be a little bit harder. There we go. Broken lag screws. I do think I want to try and pull that one out, not just grind it down, because like I said, I think those two are pulling this board up. I don't have a lot to grip onto. If I create too much of a divot, then that's going to have the same effect on my Masonite as a bump. If something heavy lands in that divot with that pocket underneath it, that's going to create a break in the Masonite as well. This is not probably the best tool for this. I should have gotten a chisel. That was what I had handy. Still don't think I can grip that though. Maybe. It's going down. Look at that. That's going to be better. You'd think after breaking off 3 or 4 lag screws, the stagehands would have thought something was amiss and maybe stopped doing that. Maybe trying something different. Maybe trying to figure out why that was happening. But no, they kept doing that, and that's why there were about 15 or 20 holes here as they were trying to attach and screw something down in and failing. Gotten it. And we're in luck. And that's already made that side flush again as well. All right. Look at that. Major problem resolved. So let's do a good sweeping, get all that loose dust up. the dust out of these cracks because there's lots of buildup and dirt and dust. It's like sand from a show that we did with some sand on the stage a couple years ago. And again, while I'm sweeping, I'm looking for any other imperfections. Hopefully the broom will catch on them and bring them to my attention. Get that to settle down anymore before I put the Masonite on. Now the catch with putting down your Masonite after you've painted it is my paint may have gone over the edges here, and that may make this piece of Masonite a little bit wider, a little bit thicker than the other pieces of the Masonite. And it may not fit, and we'll see whether that happens. One of the guidelines for spacing your Masonite is you always put them down with the thickness in between the Masonite a dime's width apart, the thickness of a dime. So if you want to have a couple of dimes and place them out, you could do that. That solves a couple of issues long term. This stage floor looks like it was just butted up piece to piece to piece. That's kind of problematic. When you're mopping the stage, the moisture gets in there, it expands, it contracts. When you're painting the stage, the moisture gets in there, it expands, it contracts. That extra dime's width of space in between each sheet on all four sides will allow you a little bit of breathing room for your Masonite. I can put this Masonite down raw as well and paint it in place. I could have done that first. I'm doing it this way as an alternative in case you don't have as much time to spend dedicated into the space. I can paint this in another space, I can prep it, it can be ready to go. I can come in here in about a half hour, 40 minutes, do a couple pieces of Masonite and replace them and walk out, and someone can come in and use the space right after me. If I paint them in place, I have to install them, I have to put them in place, and then I paint them, and each coat of paint has to have an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours before people can walk on it. 3 coats of paint, a primer, and 2 coats of Mann Brothers floor paint, and suddenly I've got the space down for 6 hours or so. And just got to see what time and space you have. All right. And it's just barely gonna sneak in there. Good. Good, good, good. You can see the major difference between the old Masonite and the new. I don't know if I can give myself a full dime's width apart here. I'm going to just give it a little bit of breathing space, but that means I may have to trim off my second space, my second piece. Okay, that looks good. The spacing's all good. I'm happy with it. Maybe these did have a dime's worth apart and they just got filled in with paint. That's possible. They don't look like it. I'm using 1-inch drywall screws, and that's pretty much all I need. The Masonite is only 1/4 of an inch, so a 1-inch drywall screw should have about 3/4 of an inch of bite on the other side. But the 1-inch screws you could strip out, and so maybe 1 1/4 would be safer. So 1 1/4 or 1 inch is fine. Make sure they go flush, and it pulls the Masonite all the way flush to the surface, and make sure you don't drive it through the Masonite. That one totally missed. We're going to have to, that one went into some sort of screw hole and just kept spinning, and it's probably, I put my countersink hole exactly where the previous screws were. So I'm going to get to the countersink bit and redo that one. Come back to it in a second. If I need to put extra screws in here, I can do that. I'll see if I can get away with just one nearby. If I get too far away from the corner's not going to be properly supported. I want to be safe, I'll just be putting it over there. So our Masonite screwing pattern is a general starting point, and then we put extras in where needed. That fits, I think. I'll just balance out that gap. Okay. This one's not coming this way because of that issue I talked about. Paint residue here on the edge. That's preventing me from sliding over any further. Here. Let's make sure those bubbles of paint don't get underneath. There, I'm happy with that. Okay. Doing the same thing as our other corner. That's what happens when you always do the corners in the same spot. yes, I could have 2 drills and not have to change my bit. I could have a countersink bit in one. And that one didn't work either. I don't think it's necessary. Going in. What you will do with a theater as old as this one with as many layers of masonite and then placed down. If we were to re-masonite the whole thing, we might want to offset them so they go on in a different pattern to avoid that problem. And you'll also experience frequently, just randomly, and it happens all too often, where screw a piece of masonite down and I hit the head of the screw in a plywood lid, and you just would think the chances of that are none or virtually none, but they happen quite frequently. All right, and there we have it. 2 pieces of new masonite ready to go and down and installed. They look good. This one is the better one of the 2. This one has a little heavier texture on it, and I don't know if you can see that in the video from the distance, but this one was painted with, I thought it was a 1/2 inch nap roller, but it turned out it was a 3/4 inch nap roller, and that 3/4 inch nap roller put this bumpy texture into the paint. 3/4 inch nap rollers are designed for not smooth surfaces. This one was painted with the 1/2 inch nap roller, and that's all very smooth and nice and consistent. So this is the 1/2 inch or 3/8 is the size of roller you want to use. You can even use 1/4 inch. I just find the 1/4 inch rollers, as I said earlier in the video, they don't hold enough paint. And I prefer the ones that will hold more paint, and I don't have to keep filling up my roller without getting to this point where they're putting in texture. If you're installing new masonite, even just 1 piece, give yourself an hour or an hour and a half at least, just in case you encounter any problems, like the problems I discovered with those hidden leg screws. These are our 2 new pieces of masonite. The one on the right here has the better surface. It was the one painted with the 1/2 inch nap roller. 1/2 inch or smaller nap roller is the one you want for your masonite stage floor. This one over here has a slightly bumpier texture. This one was made and painted with the 3/4 inch nap roller, and that creates that extra bumpy texture. I put this one on the offstage side of the stage, put my better one more on stage. And there we go. You can see the difference between the 2 new ones and the scuffed up and taped and repainted and screwed and repainted and painted with dribbles and drabs and repainted versions all around. So with the Masonite, I'm demonstrating how to use it just on the stage floor here, but we use it all over the place in theater. We don't just use it for the stage floor, we use it for our set floors. And it goes on top of the platforms and creates a layer of soundproofing, deadens the sound a little bit of the footsteps, and provides a nice, clean, smooth surface for our paint jobs on our sets. And you can do other layers of soundproofing in between the Masonite and the platform, but at minimum, the Masonite on top of the platforms will have a significant reduction in footsteps and echoes. And again, it's your primary scene painting surface. The nice thing about putting Masonite on your set is that you can build your set in one place and have your Masonite laid out somewhere else, and you can be painting your floor, and then you just have to install it. Again, saving time and not have to paint the floor on stage, depending on how you plan out your shows. So you won't always be painting your Masonite just the stage floor black. You may be painting it some sort of scenic treatment. And again, you'll be priming that with whatever primer is appropriate for that scenic treatment, and painting it as appropriate for that set design. But the same principles hold, the same frequency of countersinking, the same process, everything's the same. It's just getting a different surface treatment.